Hi, welcome to Rick Snider's Washington on YouTube, where you get the whole story. So please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks. You can leave a comment if you want. Today's story, C-SPAN has done its annual rankings of presidents. This is the first one since President Trump left, so he's now included too. And they talked to all the smart people in the world about these things and historians and such. And they come up with the list. And they didn't ask me my opinion, but the weird part is I did my own talking to a lot of smart people back in January. I was going to hopefully have a magazine piece about it, and pandemic killed that. But I kept the rankings, and so I looked at mine versus theirs. So C-SPAN and I both agree with the top six, which is Abe Lincoln over George Washington. And that's not an easy one. Not an easy one at all. I teach classes online, U.S. history to kids. I can argue either side of this, depending on what class I'm doing. But I give Lincoln a little bit of credit because he kept this country together. They lost 1 million people in the Civil War out of 30 million. So think about it today. 11 million, 12 million people dying in our country. You think the virus is bad? Go to that level. See what chaos would happen to this country. Lincoln managed to keep us together. Otherwise, we'd have probably been a half dozen countries on the North American continent. But George Washington, is the guy basically allowed democracy to happen. They were going to make him king after the Revolutionary War. So, hey, we got to, give him credit for that. Plus, he started the government from scratch and then stepped down from power. I mean, it's a close race in my mind between the two. Number three, both polls, mine and theirs, had FDR, and 4 was Theodore Roosevelt. For all of you who call him Teddy, let me just tell you one thing. He hated that name. He didn't like the stupid bear. He didn't have anything to do with that little teddy bear. He liked people calling him TR. So, you sound educated, you'd say TR Roosevelt, something like that. Number 5, we both had Ike. I got to tell you the truth, when I looked at the poll, I forgot I had Ike that high. But Ike, and this is only a poll on presidential accomplishments, not world events, because that would change the poll radically for a lot of people. Like Jimmy Carter, not a very good president at all, but a great humanitarian afterwards. Herbert Hoover saved millions of people's lives from starvation during World War I. Terrible president. So we're just sticking to the presidencies. And so we don't talk about Ike beating the Germans and Japanese and all that in World War II. But Ike, among other things, started the national road system that we have, the interstates. And that was a big accomplishment. It moved us forward. So I was born during Ike's presidency, from the very end of it. So I like Ike, and they have a new memorial for him in D.C. right across from the Air and Space Museum on Independence. Go see it sometime. Number 7, that's where we split the road a little bit. The C-SPAN guys took Jefferson, who I happened to take later on. But I took Jefferson at 9th. Jefferson, among other things, I don't think he was the greatest president in a way, but the Louisiana Purchase that he oversaw doubled the size of our country. That was a major accomplishment and led us to Manifest Destiny later on, which I'll talk about. So I see why Jefferson did it. I moved him 9th. I went LBJ 7th. I've always been a big LBJ fan. I was a kid when he was in Washington, but I always admired him. He was a big roguish kind of guy, didn't have a lot of sympathy for fools. And and he kind of gets lost in history, I think, because he's in between JFK's assassination and Richard Nixon, who would be later would have to quit, under pressure. So people forget about LBJ sometimes. And the Vietnam War was a real disaster. He knew to pull out, and he didn't. He was trying. A lot of people died unnecessarily there. But he also did some of the great social programs of this country, things like fair housing and such. I think he did a lot of great things in his presidency. So that's why I went with him in 7th. Number 8, we both took JFK. So, okay, I won't have to argue about that one. Number 9, they took Reagan, who I took 12th. I like Reagan in that Reagan told Americans it's okay to be proud of our country again. This is right after the Iranian hostage debacle, just a few years after the Vietnam War's end. Americans were kind of down on ourselves, and Reagan, as the actor from Hollywood, basically said, it's okay, be proud of our country. And that was a great thing. I also thought he spent way too much money in this defense packaging and such, trying to break the Russians and Soviet Empire up, and he did do it. So money spent, it worked out, but man, that was a big deficit problem. I don't like people with big deficits on there. If you go to Reagan Airport, which I still call National, there's a big statue of Reagan right there when you pull into the first part. Number 10, they had Obama. And I had Obama at 18. Let's see, I had him at a little bit down, 12. I'm sorry, 18. I don't know. I think Obamacare is a great thing, but I'm not going to put him in my top 10. And if you're wondering which party I'm with, I just put LBJ up high. So, I'm not against the guy just because he's a Democrat or something. I'm kind of an independent myself. So I was just a little surprised there. My 10th guy was James Polk, another person I think overlooked in history. He's the Manifest Destiny guy. And I know they tried to make this so hard to understand, but I tell students online, I go, Manifest Destiny is simply, I'm standing on the East Coast, and I'm looking to the West Coast, and all that land in the middle is going to be mine. Doesn't matter who else owns it, doesn't matter who else lives on it. Sucks to be you. I'm getting it. And he did lead the charge across, and we did go all the way to California by beating Mexico in a war. We got New Mexico and California as part of the deal, and part of Texas was no longer disputed. Polk said, I'm going to serve one term, I'm going to do some big things, and I'm going to retire. And he did, and he died a few months after he retired because he was ill. He started U.S. Naval Academy. He was around when the Smithsonian started. I think, Polk is a really good president. So I don't know. There's the top 10. You can go to C-SPAN, see theirs, or you can go to monumentalthoughts.com and see mine. And if you're wondering who's at the bottom of this poll, no, it's not who you think, either one of us. C-SPAN and I both took Buchanan, who was the president before Lincoln, who basically let the Civil War happen. And we both agree he was a terrible president on there. C-SPAN actually had Trump a few notches up. So, Hoover gets a lot of hate down the bottom, too, and such. So, hey, look at the list. It's always fun to see can't tell who's right or wrong, but since C-SPAN and I pretty much agree on the top 10, got like 8 of 10 together, I like their list. I'm Rick Snider for Rick Snider's Washington. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you again soon.